We are back, and it's the third Tuesday of the month. That must mean it's Gerald Celente. Buongiorno, my friend.
Buongiorno.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, considering that every day I have to immerse myself in all of the ugly deeds that are being committed around the world, and understanding what they all mean. So, if I wasn't meditating every day and taking care of my 100-something plants in the office, I'd probably blow my brains out.
Well, I right before I brought you on, I did a little expose on the Petro dollar and why we're still in the Middle East, going after the 7 countries that General Wesley Clark was shown the list by then Vice President Dick Cheney in the Pentagon, mapping out the 7 countries we're going after. It's got nothing to do with terrorism. It's got nothing to do with somebody having weapons of mass destruction or maybe trying to develop a bomb. No, this has to do with support of the petrodollar because, well, Iran is, they've attempted to sell their oil in gold. They didn't want to deal with the dollar. And our bankster gangsters, our international cabal here of the worldwide spider corporation that want to give us the idea that it's okay to make money off of money, but it's really not even money. We're going to charge you kind of a tax or a usury fee for just using our stuff. And the banks themselves have, and the Federal Reserve, has managed to destroy the dollar about 98% of it. But they're not done. They're still working on it. And, of course, Gerald, I don't have to say or ask the question. It's a given. Last week, Ben Bernanke, the old wise one of the Federal Reserve, said, yeah, QE3 coming, and you know what? But we figured out that we're going to do the interbank lending at close to 0% until mid-2015, maybe even longer.
Well, the cover of the Summer TrendsJournal. This has been going on forever. We have our illustrator, Anthony Frieda, has one of Jesus Christ chasing the money changers out of the temple. But this time the money changers are, these boys in these, those suits with these red and blue ties, and they have Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup on the tables that they're running away from. So this is as old as history, and the labels only changed. When Christ was chasing them out of the temple, they were money changers. When I was a kid growing up in the Bronx, they were loan sharks. And now they're called financiers and bankers. But it's the same criminal acts. They're taking our money, loaning it back to us at usury rates, and enslaving the people into debt. And I've been thinking about this whole saga that's going on among young people that are getting these degrees in worthlessness from the college industrial complex. And if you want to talk about a criminal operation, and you look back in history and they write a passage, and they would have young people, barely out of their teens, or still in their teens, I should say, sign over for life tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, that they would become indentured servants to pay off for the rest of their lives. And you can't make this stuff up.
Well, but here's the more disgusting thing about this: going through college, taking out these student loans to prepare to go into the job market that doesn't exist.
Well, that's what I said, a degree in worthlessness.
Yeah. This is absolutely insane.
It's not insane, it's criminal activity. But they call it something else.
Well, there are hospitals for the criminally insane as well, Gerald.
It's called Washington D.C.
and Wall Street,
and every state capital. Really, when you think about this, John, having a kid take on hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt and making them sign for it. Oh, and by the way, all you probably don't have them listening now, but everybody out there who knows one, and everybody knows one or several, Obama apologists, the Democratic Party people, yeah, this was pushed through. It began under the Clinton administration, where you can't get out of these loans, and then shoved through by Biden when he was senator from the loophole state over there in Delaware. So this is what's made it impossible to ever get out from under this loan.
Are you talking about the modifications they made to bankruptcy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And that began, as you know, under the Clinton administration.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pushed through even when Bush was in. They hadn't finished doing the dirty work. And, of course, it was easy for the Bush group. And I heard you talking, you know, about what's going on as I was waiting on the line, where you're talking about America's wars. I'm going to read to you. We're working on the autumn edition of the TrendsJournal, which will be out in a couple of weeks, and we're talking now about the Libyan incident. And we said it was 24/7 nonstop propaganda. The brave, beloved, fluent in Arabic Ambassador Stevens didn't, quote, risk his life to help protect the Libyan people from a tyrant. There are tyrants ruling throughout the world, many of whom America supports. In Libya, Stevens was looking after America's interests, i.e. doing its dirty work. The aim was to remove the uncooperative Gaddafi and install a puppet government that would allow America to better exploit the Libya's precious, high-quality, sweet crude oil fields that the Chinese and others were freely accessing. And you also mentioned about the currencies, and of course there were those rumors about, you know, Libya not being part of that whole cabal where their currency was being washed through it, and they were dealing with their own money and their own denominations. And the same thing with Iraq. So let's make this straight. There are tyrants everywhere. And if there's no natural resource or other resource for the United States to exploit, they're not interested. And this isn't, as I've mentioned before, if Libya was sitting on, you know, huge broccoli fields, nobody would care.
Because George Bush Jr. hated broccoli, I remember.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's all this is about. And are American people ever going to wake up and grow up? How many times are they going to buy in to the same lame, stale, and demonstrably fraudulent storyline that the reason the United States invades, destroys, and occupies sovereign countries that pose no threat to them was for the standard one-size-fits-all, altruistic, all-American reason to bring freedom and democracy to people being oppressed by brutal dictators and tyrants, I tell you.
Mm-hmm. Well, what Libya was doing, Gaddafi, he saw what was going on. He wanted to do his gold-based currency not only for his own country, but a lot of African nations as well. And, you know, you can screw around here with the petrodollar. That's, that's one thing. But go against and give people an alternative of dealing with U.S. dollars, that could not be tolerated.
No, it can't.
You know,
and this is going on. This is criminality right in front of our face. And when I'm reading the lines that are coming out of the White House, the propaganda mill, and another thing too, you know, I'm really offended by this. I'm really offended by the made-for-TV presentation that they showed of President Obama and Hillary Clinton and an honor guard of a few dozen guys that were broadcast from Washington at one of those Air Force bases when they brought back the dead ambassador and his bodyguards, and all of these praises that they were throwing on them, and how, you know, terrible it was. But, you know, if Private Mike Jones gets blown to pieces by a roadside bomb, or Corporal Tammy White gets a bullet in her head, or Sergeant Jose Gonzalez gets murdered by an Afghan recruit that he's supposed to be training, you don't see any live broadcasts. And the Washington and the embassies around the world are rocked by this. And the President and Secretary of State and all the top military brass, they're all AWOL. And you know why? I'll tell you why. because their lives are more important than everybody else's. When one of them gets hit, then it's oh my God, look what happened. Oh, how terrible. Hey, but when you're just cannon fodder, you don't count.
Well, Gerald, I have not told you this, but right now you're speaking to enlisted personnel on one of the largest, it is the largest Army base on planet Earth, Fort Hood, by way of KHFX 1140 AM. So when you're speaking about service people, you're talking to a big group of them now.
Yeah. And I'm outraged. I'm outraged at the way they treat our service people. I'm outraged. I have friends that served in Vietnam, and they tell me how the troubles that they're having and the little bit of help that they have. I'm outraged when I see the President of the United States roil off about all their ambassador, but they give short shrift to everybody else. This is an outrage to me to see this. Well, as I said, you watch those conventions. This is the setup, just so everybody could understand it. You heard, first they roll out Ann Romney, among others, and she goes on and on and on and on and on about the wonderful husband, the perfect father, the best family man in the whole world. You know, and then Michelle, she does the same thing. I'm saying to myself, I'm 65 years old. I never heard a woman talk about a husband like this all my life.
Especially after
these are
all
really
those years.
special people,
They must be.
And then the guys come out. And they came from the perfect families, whether it was the rich one or the poor one. The perfect parents, the perfect this, the perfect that. They are perfect. They come from the perfect families. They have the perfect children. Everything they do is perfect. And you see, this is the setup. The guys at the top are all better than we are. All the generals, all the commanders, all the ambassadors and secretaries of this and that. They're the best. The rest of us, hey, we're lucky we could breathe air or tie our own shoes. So I want to make this really straight. Their mother's not better than mine. And how dare they? How dare they pump themselves up at the expense of all of us? Who do they think they are, these little Caesars and these warhawk Hitleries? Because that's all they are.
By the way, I haven't had an opportunity to speak to you. Just this past Saturday at a bookstore down here in Austin, there was a showing of Chuck Untersee's Behold a Pale Horse. And there was a lot of people that were sitting in that audience that had never heard of Gerald Celente before, didn't know a whole lot about what's going on with America. But I'm going to tell you what, out of all the people that were in that first of a trilogy of 3 DVD presentation by Chuck and Anita Untersee, you got the laughs and the applause, my friend. I just wanted you to know that. Because people connected with you. You speak a language that they understand. And they are, the anger and the dissatisfaction, it's palpable, and they feel it as well. The only problem is, Gerald, is we're not getting to enough people. They have been pre-programmed. All of this stuff that they digest every day has been carefully selected, pre-cooked, pre-packaged, pre-pablum for their digestion, and they don't know why and how it's being delivered to them. That's the real real irony here.
You're right, and we only reach a defined audience, and my belief is as I keep moving further and further into doing what I've been doing for 32 years, I've written serious books on trends and on, is that the way to change it, to me, is through entertainment, I have to tell you. That could be the most effective means. And also in the ways of a rebirth of the spirit, because the spirit has been lost. And what they do is they drill it out of you, and they make you lose your self-respect and your dignity and your passion and integrity and courage by, you can't cower to power. And you have to understand that this is your life. This is your place on earth. It's yours. No one's to tell you what to do with it.
You only get one go-round, too. This is it.
And so exactly. I'm a single guy. I was married for 23 years. I'm single since my mid-90s. And I have no children. And I have a wall over here at the TrendsJournal of all my, not all of them, a lot of my ancestors, called the Ancestors Wall. And everybody I love is dead. And so I'm not hanging on to anything. And one of my thoughts are, and again, you know me, I don't tell anybody what to believe. My motto is think for yourself, which was taught to me by my dear father, may his soul rest in peace. And for me, hell is taking that last breath and knowing that you lied to yourself and you weren't the person who you said you were. I don't want to go out on that kind of a trip. And so to me, the other way that could bring positive change is when people start getting in touch with themselves and finding that special gift that they have that no one else has, that secret weapon, and really, really honing it, refining it, practicing at it, and bringing it to its highest level. When each person finds the greatness within themselves, true greatness, I'm talking about practice, so you can't get good at anything without practice, then everything will change. Because when you have that, I believe, then you have courage and dignity and respect and integrity and passion. And nobody can take those away from you. When you have those, you don't take other people's crap.
You've hit upon something that this is the psychological aspect of this. People can understand. I mean, this is definable by looking at your checkbook balance that, oh, my goodness, I'm not doing that well this month. Or I've looked at my trend over the last year or the last 5 years. I've looked at my investments. I've looked at everything that I've sunk my labors and sweat into, and I'm seeing it all disappear. That's just one aspect of it, Gerald, and you just hit it. Yeah, wealth is one thing, money is one thing. It's what we use every day to survive in this country, that's for sure. But the psychological ramifications of being stripped of their dignity, of their pride, of the very essence that makes each and every one of us, yeah, okay, there's 7 billion people on the face of this planet, that's for sure, but you are as unique as a fingerprint or a snowflake. And over the years, Mr. Celente, I have tried to get people to understand that we each have our unique talents, that all you have to do is tap into that. If you want to throw off the fear and the anger and the anxiety and all of those things, find that special thing within yourself and nurture it, make it bloom, blossom it, work it, because it's just not for yourself. It's for the future generations yet to come. And I've always asked them this, if you think that you've done everything that you possibly could do, when you tuck your children in bed at night, and you have them say their prayers, and you tuck them in and you walk out of that room, ask yourself, have I done everything to secure their future that I possibly could? If you can answer in the affirmative, I'm here to applaud you. If you duck the question, I'm ashamed of you.
Well, again, just even taking it one step further, whether you applaud or whether you're ashamed, it really goes just back to them, because it's all about them. As you used to say, you come into this world alone and you leave it alone. It's everybody really knows. Deep down, you know. Deep down, you know. I mentioned to you I meditate every day. And I try to quiet my mind. I read all day long. I'm studying, analyzing. And I want to stop the movie. I want to put some quiet space in there.
Yeah.
And it's work. It's work. I mean, every day, it's the first thing that I do. And I exercise every day. I wake up, same routine. I say to myself, I'm beat, man. I'm really tired. I'm not going to do it. And I do it. And I try to even do it harder because I said I wasn't going to do it. And, I've been practicing. I'm a close combat practitioner. And I've been practicing for over 25 years. You don't get good at it without practicing. And I practice and practice. I practice at my trade every day. I could honestly say I could count the times I've missed in a day of not studying in what's going on in the world, what it means, and how it's going to play out. It's continual practice. And what's happened is they've pushed us into this level of conformity. Think about it. When you and I were kids, I don't know, speaking for myself, I don't know how old you are, they used to have this thing, John, called hardware stores.
Yep, I remember them well.
Remember those things?
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and remember those things? You know, I heard Mittens Romney bragging about, you know, he's created jobs by creating a bigger Staples. Oh, isn't Staples wonderful? They put out of business all of those. They had a term for them. This is an old term, little boys and girls out there and children of all ages. Stationery stores. Yeah, that's right. And every little town had one, or two, or three. And people were entrepreneurs, and they could earn a good middle class and even an upper middle class livelihood. Unlike today, where the gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the United States than any of the industrialized countries. And back then, there weren't Olive Gardens. There was real Italian food.
That's right.
Right. And on and on.
Yep.
And people weren't Dunkin' Donuts. And what they've done is they've taken the uniqueness away from all of us. So for me, the only future I see of a great America is a return, a renaissance, a rediscovery of quality, of dignity. Look at the way the people dressed. Look at the way they looked in the old days. You go back to the Depression pictures. I have a photo on my wall of my parents. 1934. Italian immigrants, their wedding. I'll tell you what. Bill Gates or Warren Buffett couldn't get in that photo. They say, who are these caffones dressed like this that came here? People had dignity. This country used to build quality. Go on the Internet and Google in decaying Detroit. And look at Detroit going into the dust. Oh. And the beautiful buildings, the glorious buildings that were of the greatest European quality that used to be built here. And now what do? You have guys like Mittens Romney and the rest of them bragging about big box stores. Oh, yeah, it's great going into one of these things. Why, it's like walking into a large self-storage unit. I love it. So the only way I see it coming back is a renaissance, to bring back the greatness of America. Hey, I remember when music was music, and people actually knew how to play instruments and knew how to sing, and they didn't dub over and put it piece by piece by piece.
We celebrated life, and pride, they say, is one of the 7 deadly sins. That was an unspoken thing in America. We had pride because we did good things. It was a part of our makeup, Gerald. It was unquestioned. People were beating down the doors to get to America, and it wasn't just for the financial opportunity. It's because we had liberty and freedom, and you could make money there and do all of those things. Wow, what a wonderful concept.
You know, what you just said, German television was over here. They're doing a movie called Collapse, and they had me in it. And I started saying that my ancestors came to this country for exactly what you said. You know what? I couldn't finish saying it. I broke down in tears. It breaks my heart. And look at the people that are stealing our present and our future. Freaks. It's a freak show. Turn on the conventions. Look at them. It was a cross between an NFL game and a mega church revival meeting. It was all staged and phony. And look at the people that are telling us that they're better than we are. As I pointed out, this thing about bringing home, exalting this guy, this ambassador, as they short shrift our soldiers and the peoples whose lives are really on the line. You know, you mentioned about these guys like Bush and Obama calling themselves Commander-in-Chief. Tell you what, Commander-in-Chief, saddle up and lead the charge, and don't come home until you finish the job. And by the way, send your wife and kids there too, because we could use some help on the lines, rather than, taking our money and giving it to all your mercenary buddies and your so-called military contractors. We could have some. Your kids could be out there making beds and doing dishes, and your wives could be serving food.
Gerald,
and cooking.
Gerald, we're out of time in this segment. I just wanted to tell you the next time you come on the program, we're firing up WWCR 100,000 watt transmitter that'll cover all the United States and seriously half the planet. So gear up and get ready. Next time you come on, you're going to have even a bigger audience. TrendsResearch.com. Gerald Celente, thank you.
Hey, thank you, John.